Imagine a vacation where every detail is tailored just for you. That's the Dream Vacations and Rentals by PMI Difference. We're not just another rental company. We're your personal vacation curators focused on you, our guest. From hand-picked properties to curated local experiences, we craft personalized journeys. Our marketing reaches you with the perfect options, matching your unique travel style. With Dream Vacations and Rentals by PMI, your perfect getaway is just a click away. Visit our website to book your dream vacation today and experience the PMI difference.
What's going on, my beautiful people? Oh my God, I'm not having a good day today. But I can't get my camera to work, so I have to use the camera on my laptop. But guys, as always, if you're watching, do me a big favor and say hi, list any questions you may have in the comments. I'm trying to get situated here. Sorry I'm late. Like I said, I'm not having a good day today. It's just crazy today. I had everything prepared. Just give me one quick second. What I want to do today is I want to go over a study that, or a report that came out on short-term rentals, and it's an interesting study because it encompassed, and there was a survey done, and by location, 56% of responded are from North America. Then we had 23% from Europe, 18% from Latin America, 2% from Australia, New Zealand, and then 1% from Asia. And in terms of properties under management, 33% of the people that responded had either 1 to 4, 15 had between 5 and 9, 19 had between 20 and 24, 18 between 25 and 49, and 50 properties or more only had 5%. And then single market operators, 78% of the people that responded are single market operators. And it goes to what I have said before. The short-term rental industry is really a regional business. What works here in South Florida doesn't work in Colombia. What works in Colombia doesn't work in Spain, etc. Right? So it's really a very I don't want to say niche, but like I said, it's very, very regional. Now, the market. One of the interesting things that I got from the report is the market outlook, right? So specifically as it relates to competition, and I've said this before, competition has intensified, especially in the last couple of years, because a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon. And I'm going to try to open this report a little bit more so I can read it because I don't really have my glasses on. But for the 5th consecutive years, operators reported a rise in competitive pressure. 83% indicated an increase in competition in their specific area. Now, that's huge, people, compared to 2019. Now, if you follow this channel, I've said this a million times. We're never going back to pre-COVID times or specifically COVID times, though, especially during COVID in the South Florida area specifically. Those were the golden years. Those what I refer to are anomalies. We're not going to see that now, and we're not going to see what happened prior to that, like 2015, 16, 17. We were still in the infant stage during that time. There was not a lot of regulation, not a lot of competition. So, and I'm going to try to go as quickly as possible through through these numbers, right? And it says here, have you observed changes in the rental competition in your market? 53% of the people that replied to the survey said yes, increased, right? Increased somewhat. 31% said it increased significantly. 4% said they saw a decrease, and 2% said they saw a decrease significantly, a significant decrease. Now, again, the reason why there's a variance here is because what I just mentioned, right? This is a very regional based area. If you are in, let's say, the Panhandle, if you are in South Florida, I'm going to give you a perfect place. If you are in Medellin, Colombia, you saw a drastic increase in competition within the last 5 years. People, again, saw how profitable the short-term rental game was prior to that, and everyone jumped on the bandwagon. But since then, like I said, competition has increased. This is what these people are saying. And operators are here's another interesting stat here. 79% made business changes in response to this competition pressure. And guess what a lot of these changes were? A lot of people got out of the game. This is why in 2026 or in Q4 of 2025, we started to see an increase in revenue and occupancy rates, because we started to see those, what I refer to as the wannabes, right? Not the true professionals, the people that jumped on the bandwagon when things were hot, are starting to jump off the bandwagon because it's difficult, right? It's not easy, and it's not as profitable as it was before. So I'm going to try to go over this report quickly because it's a lot. There's a lot to cover here. But and we're probably only going to touch on this specific report because I got a hard stop in 20 minutes because I have another live from my other channel to go on to. But one of the questions that they asked in this report was, who felt that regulatory influence their revenue? And 61% of the managers answered or stated that they faced new or updated regulations in 2024 and 2025 that did influence revenue. And another question was, have there been new change or changes in short-term rental regulations in your market? And again, the years were 2024 and 2025. 39% of people stated yes. 31% stated that they saw new laws or additional regulation. A combination of new laws and regulations and changes to existing ones, 20% of the people said yes. Changes to existing laws and regulations, 10% said yes, right? So regulation did have a big and measurable impact on revenue in 2024 and 2025. We all saw it, right? If you were in Spain, it killed the business. You were in New York, regulation killed the short-term rental industry. And that's just to name two of the drastic changes and areas that got affected because of regulation, right? Now, let's go on to rates and occupancy and how a split market determined this, right? The average daily rate movement is divided almost evenly across operators of all types. Interesting stat, right? Didn't matter what type of operator you were, the average daily rate was affected, right? Have you observed changes in average daily rates? The question. Increased significantly, plus 10% or more, only 6% of people said yes. Increased somewhat, of 5% to 10%. 34% said yes. No changes or stable, 22% said yes. Decreased somewhat, 27% said they saw a decrease in average daily rate and in occupancy rates, and 11% stated that it was a drastic decrease. Now, again, one of the reasons why or these numbers will affect you differently based on your region. I'm going to specifically talk about the South Florida area. in the South Florida area, we saw in 2024 and 2025 not a decrease in revenue, but we saw a small increase. So we fall into that 6% category where we saw only a 5% increase in revenue and occupancy rates in those 2 years. And if we compare that to let's say 2020 up to 2023, where we were seeing increases of up to 30 to 40% increases. I mean, and again, I'm going to go back to say those were anomaly years. We're not going to see that. I don't think we're ever going to see that again. But I think we will continue to see, and again, region specific, because if you watch the STR news that I gave last week, there's certain areas, and I'm going to use the U.S. as an example, certain areas in the U.S. in which you're seeing some drastic decreases, mainly because of competition and or regulation. And I just touched on it a little bit in Europe, right? Spain, forget about it. You're in Spain, you're seeing huge decreases in this because regulation has tightened up a lot. Now, when it comes to occupancy rate, so that was average daily rate or ADR. It's the same question was applied to occupancy rate. So question A, increased significantly, only 7% said yes. Increased somewhat, 26%. Now I'm in this category, the increased somewhat, right? No changes or stable, 18%. Decreased somewhat, 29%. Again, keep in mind, these are all going to depend on what area you're at or you're operating out of. Now, I touched on this before because we're going to talk about guest expectations, right? The question is, have you noticed any changes in guest expectation in the last year? I want you guys to guess what the answer to that question is. And you can either answer it in no or yes, right? And and we're not even touching on positive or negative yet, right? So 68% of operators stated that they saw a change of expectation in the last year. Huge. I personally can attest to that. Guest expectations are crazy today. They want more and they want to pay less for it. They expect more and they want to pay less for it. So how do I phrase this question? From a review perspective, we're seeing that more and more operators are getting less positive reviews than positive reviews because of this, because guests today are expecting more. Now, part of that is because more and more people are experimenting and are getting introduced to short-term rentals, right? To Airbnbs, to use that term. Last year, I talked about this, in terms of opportunity. There's still a large portion of the population that have never stayed in a short-term rental. I mean, that number is huge. I don't have the exact numbers today. I don't think they're in this report, but I remember last year just talking about this, and the number was really high. It was like an 80% around that range of people in the U.S., and I'm just talking about the U.S., have never stayed in a short-term rental. When they travel, they usually stay in hotels. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But the problem is, in 2025 and part of now 2026, we're starting to get more people entering or experimenting with short-term rentals, but they have a very different expectation because they're coming from the hotel world. And short-term rentals are not hotels. They don't operate in the same spectrum, but guests are expecting the same type of service that they get in a hotel. If you're a short-term rental operator, you need to wake the hell up. I need to understand this dynamic, right? You need to, first of all, set the proper expectations in your listings. When you create a listing, set the proper expectations there, right? If you're in a bad area, I'm not saying to write that you're in a bad area, or if your property has some flaws, I'm not saying to highlight the flaws, but I am saying that you need to set the expectations for when the guest gets there. They're not surprised. They're not shocked of what they find. One of the easiest way to combat this, and I'm talking about in the listing, is to make sure that your photos are updated. I can't tell you how many people that I work with that that have been operators for an extended period of time, and when I ask them about their pictures, they're the original pictures that they created when they first got into the game 2 or 3 years ago. Man, that's a big miss, because I guarantee you those pictures do not depict the property as it is today. It may have the same furniture, but it's not going to be in the same condition, right? It may have the same color walls, but it's not going to be in the same condition. I firmly believe that you should be updating those pictures twice a year, at a bare minimum once a year. You should be updating your picture. You should be updating your property. You should be going through, right now we're going through a revamp phase for our company. And number one priority for our property managers is to go through every property and make sure that everything is it's updated. We don't have stuff that should have been replaced several months ago, if not years ago, right? You need to make sure that everything in those pictures and that description. And now, if you're not aware, platforms like Verbal allow you to upload videos of your property. I'm going to touch on that in a second, but those pictures and that description needs to be updated. You need to be refreshing that on a regular basis throughout your calendar year. And I'm telling you, it's because of this. Because I know if you've been an operator for a while, very difficult today to get a 5-star review. Even if you provided a 5-star service and you believe your property deserves that 5-star review, more and more people are not giving it. It's frustrating. I understand it, but it's reality and something we have to deal with. Okay. Here we go. In terms of the nature of this shift consists across all markets, meaning that this customer expectation that I just described and talked about is not regional. This is across all markets. And here's what the report said. 42% reported higher guest expectations, right? 12% reported guests seeking discounts. And this, I don't fault the guests because, I would seek it, but we're seeing an increase of people asking for discounts. 11% report communication-related issues. Again, some of this stuff can be prevented. And I talked about this before as well, and the communication aspect of this, when it says communication-related issue, it can be a variety of things, like you not responding in a timely manner. This is an area in which I think with today's technology, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be responding to an inquiry or a guest question almost immediately, right? We implemented AI a while ago for the exact same reason. AI is going to be able to respond immediately, and I don't have to have people on staff 24/7 to do so. And if AI doesn't know the answer to the question, at least AI is telling the guest that someone will get back to you shortly, and depending on the time of day that we receive the call. So for example, somebody has an inquiry or has a question and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, AI already knows to say, hey, our hours of operations are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Someone in the morning will get back to you, right? But at least that guest is receiving some type of information better than receiving zero information, right? So I found that to be very interesting and something that I think I think it's the biggest change in this industry, right? Here is another thing that guest behavior is fragmented, and there is no clear direction of where they're going, right? When, and here's what I like to refer this component to, right? Hotels have 24-hour service, right? Somebody can go downstairs and ask the front desk for whatever question they have, or they can pick up the phone and call. This is why I say it's very important that if you don't, like, for example, I don't expect mom and pop operators that are managing one property or maybe two properties to have all the bells and whistles that we have, right? Implementing AI, using good quality PMS systems. That stuff gets expensive. And when you only have one property, and when RevPAR and your average daily rate is not what it used to be, it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money on these tools. But this is where you have to set that expectation in your listing, letting people know, hey, your whatever your situation is, let that guest know beforehand. And then once they book, let them know, hey, we're available during these times. We may not be available during these times, so that the guests fully understand, what to expect if it's after hours. All right, let me move on to the next subject. Let me keep track of the time. I only have another 5 to 10 minutes. The magic wand question, right? Each year we ask operators a simple question. If you can wave a magic wand and make your job instantly easier, what will you change? Year after year, technology remains to be the biggest headache for operators. I just kind of touched on that, right? If you can wave that magic wand and make your job instantly easier, 44% people said it was technology. 9% said operations. 9% said listing sites and OTAs. 8% said cleaning and turnover. Getting more direct bookings is 8%. And then 24% of the people that responded to that question gave a variety of different answers, right? But when it comes to technology, right, that's what I just referred to, is having AI, having a good PMS system, having a good pricing software. That is still one of the biggest, headaches for operators, right? Especially if you're a small operator, or you're an operator that's starting to grow, getting into the right PMS system is extremely important. This is why I preached for many years to use a PMS system like Hostfully, right? Now, having said that, we're as a company, we're in 2026, we're making a big shift into another OTA. It's a well-known OTA, but one of the reasons we're going to shift to that OTA is because they're integrated. So for those that don't know, I operate in several countries, and some of these other countries, they don't have like for example, an OTA like Hostfully. Even though it's available, it's not popular. So they use these OTAs that won't integrate with Hostfully. And I need a PMS system that will allow me to integrate with other OTAs or PMS system like SiteMander, for example. SiteMander is one of the most popular PMS systems used by hotels and short-term rental operators in Colombia. So my inability to connect to SiteMander is a major problem. So anyway, we're going to be making that shift, but I bring that up because you should look for an OTA, a PMS system that will allow you to grow, right? Even if you don't intend to grow quickly or in the near future, if you plan on doing this job for any extended period of time, suck it up, pay for an OTA that's going to allow you to grow, not only now, but in the future. All right. I think just one more thing. The last thing I'll talk about is growth in 2025 and 2026 was a priority for growth in 2026, right? So consistently when asked, what is your number one priority going into a year? So in this case, 2025 and now 2026, 55% of the people that responded said that their number one priority is to grow. I think if you're a short-term rental operator, this number should have been 100%. 100% of you should be saying growth is the most important. Reason being, and I've always said this, if you're not growing, you are dying, people. And don't think that, let's say, for example, you feel you hit the pinnacle or your ideal number, and let's say that ideal number is 100 properties under management. And you're like, okay, I'm where I need to be. And you take the foot off the gas. Take it from me, a person that's done that. A year later, you're going to look back and you're going to regret for taking your foot off the gas, right? You got to constantly grow because you don't know when that downturn is going to come. Again, and I'm going to go down the list of some of the other priorities. And this one's a big one, and I've talked about it a lot. 49% of the people said their priority in 2025 and 2026 is to get familiar with and adapt and implement AI. Guys, you have to implement AI, man. Next is to optimize RevPAR. And then the next highest one is to delegate tasks. And the last one is technology efficiency gains, meaning understanding the tools that they currently have and being efficient with the tools that you currently have. This is a big one as well. I've always said this because when people ask me what's the best PMS system out there, my response is always going to be the PMS system that you're actually going to use and understand. I always give my story. Early on, when PMS systems were not a thing and didn't exist, I paid a lot of money to create my own PMS system. And that PMS system was phenomenal. Had everything I needed and everything I wanted. But the issue with that PMS system, it was extremely complicated to use and complicated to teach. So whenever I had a new employee, it took me months to get that employee up to speed on that PMS system, which is why we shifted to Hostfully, because Hostfully is a very easy PMS system to use. It's very user-friendly. But today, the same can be said with a lot of other PMS systems. They're pretty easy to use and understand. Anyway, my beautiful people, I'm going to leave it there. And I was not paying attention to any of the questions. So Lorena, if there's a question, let me know.
No, just people say hello from Miami. Thank you. It's a good advice. Good stacks. It's already true. People are like, yeah.
All right, everybody. Those that are watching live, thank you for watching live. Thank you for saying hi. Thank you for telling me where you're watching from. Those that watch us on replay, do the same. Say hi. Tell me where you're watching from. If you have a question, leave them in the comments, and I will definitely get to them. Anyways, until next Wednesday, love you guys.